Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 7 of What If Naruto was sent to the fairy tale universe. If you guys enjoyed this What If, and want to see part 8 of it, comment down below, and let me know. Also check out previous parts of this What If. I have created a playlist for this What If, where you can find all the previous parts, link is in the description. And also go ahead and check out other What Ifs in the channel. Before we start, please do support for more awesome content, it really means a lot. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. Oh yeah, how you like that? That's what a fairy tale mage is all about. Crowing over his team's victory, Makarov ran forward to Urza, Gray and Natsu, congratulating them on a job well done. Levi and Lucy also came running over from their previous position, joining in with a small celebration. Naruto however stood back, letting them have their moment. A great deal of him just wanted to jump into the middle of the fray, and begin screaming like Natsu, but he restrained himself. That was what he would have done when he was younger, but he had matured since then. The strange presence he could sense somewhere nearby also had him a little on edge. It was probably just small amounts of leftover energy from Lullaby though, so he ignored it. Naruto, what are you doing standing over there? You were just as much a part of this win as these guys. Seeing Makarov pointing at him, Naruto raised a hand to his head, grinning sheepishly. It was nothing, Tatabayo. Nevertheless though, he found himself walking over to the group. Natsu instantly jumped onto him, legs wrapped around Naruto's shoulders, as he cried out to heavens. To hell with maturity, that's for old people. Shouting out with Natsu, Naruto started jumping around, both boys ecstatic with the victory. Watching the two runs around in circles, Makarov chuckled. Walking up beside Urza, he gave her a nudge. So, would you think Naruto would be a good addition to the guild? The woman's eyes instantly darkened. I personally would protest that. He openly admitted to killing the enemy. Raising an eyebrow, Makarov looked over at Naruto, the boy now taking Natsu for a ride through the trees. Someone so young to have taken a life. It hasn't seemed to impact on him as much as it could have though. He seems stable enough. Shaking her head, Urza pushed her case. But that goes against everything we stand for. No death, no matter what. Shrugging, Makarov didn't answer for a little bit. He had noticed the animosity between his re-equipped queen and the new blonde, since he first saw them in Clover. Looking up, Makarov decided to push things along to a conclusion. Well, perhaps you could speak with him for me. I trust you'll interview him in an unbiased manner. Gritting her teeth, Urza calmed herself. She couldn't refuse a request like this. Yes, master. I shall speak with him immediately. Chuckling to himself, Makarov watched as Urza walked off, clothes glowing back to normal as she neared the boys. Naruto watched as Urza neared them from the corner of his eye. He had watched her, and the guild master's discussion, and it seemed the old man had decided to resolve the dispute now. Naruto, come with me if you please. Looking down from his head, Natsu pouted and shook his head. Nah, Urza, why does he have to leave now? It was just getting fun. Something glinted angrily in Urza's eye as her voice dropped. Please. Leaping worriedly, Natsu leapt from Naruto's shoulders and ran off, not wanting to start something he couldn't finish. Brushing past Naruto, Urza walked off into the trees behind him. Shrugging, Naruto raised his hands to clasp behind his head casually, following the redhead. After a short walk, Urza turned around and looked into Naruto's eyes. Alright, I will be blunt about this. Master Makarov wants to ask you to join the guild. I personally oppose this, but as requested, I will conduct the interview. Naruto, would you be interested in joining? Pausing, Naruto had a quick think. Something like this may have been an instant choice to anyone from Fiori, but Naruto still wanted to get home. Hell, he wasn't planning to stay more than a few days there. Such an offer, though, was a prestigious thing. Slightly closing one eye, Naruto bit his tongue. I am interested, but I can't say yes or no now. It's a big choice. Nodding, the answer seemed to say to Urza for the moment. That is fine. I will tell you the rules now though, in case you decide to. Fairy Tail is a guild of the light, a guild a part of the Guildmasters League. We pride ourselves in upholding the law and treating everyone fairly. Once affiliated with us, you cannot join any other guild, unless you quit or are expelled. Narrowing her eyes, Urza's glare deepened. Now listen closely to this part. We have a strict no-death policy. We do not kill, under any circumstances. Would you be able to conform to this? Bright blue eyes seemed to peer into her soul as Urza glared, seemingly searching for something. After a moment, Naruto dropped his arms. You had a hard upbringing, didn't you? Cursing herself for flinching, Urza steadied herself. That has nothing to do with this. Don't avoid my question. Naruto smiled. But it answers mine. I wondered why you dislike me so. You seem stable now, but you are like me. You had a hard life. Frowning, Urza bared her teeth. So what if I did? You couldn't understand, so stop asking. I wouldn't tell someone I just met that either. Shaking his head, Naruto sat down on a rock behind him in a disarming gesture. You'd be surprised what I understand. I know pain, loneliness, hunger, abuse. Did you go through that? Unbidden memories of Ursa's childhood flashed through her mind as Naruto spoke, the pain of losing her eye and friends to her tormentors, the loneliness of solitary confinement for trying to break out of the slave tower, the hunger from tiny meals for days on end, and the abuse inflicted by the accursed whips the guards had to make them work faster. Shaking her head, Ursa took a breath. That is in the past. I have grown up with that and have learned to ignore it. Smiling again, Naruto sighed. That's not very healthy. I wonder though, have you had to kill too? Ursa's minute eye twitch was enough of a giveaway to Naruto. You have, haven't you? Snarling, Ursa glared at Naruto. No, they died because of the other prisoners. I just opened up a path. So you were a slave. Faltering, Ursa quickly snapped her mouth shut. Glaring at the boy, she stood up straight again. For how dumb he acted, he was very perceptive on some things. Choosing to ignore the hostile movement, Naruto leaned back, answering Ursa's unasked questions. I had hard life. Your eyes are a bit like mine, so that how I can tell. I had no friends, family or anything as I grew up. Everyone hated me for something I never did. I was completely alone, and had to learn fast. I was pickpocket and thief after I was kicked out of orphanage. No one helped me if I hurt. I had no one. You had friends though. Hearing the brief glimpse into Naruto's past, Ursa found herself accepting that Naruto may have been able to understood some of her pain. Steeling herself, Ursa regained her composure. I had good friends, but they are safe now. Smiling, Naruto nodded. You would die for them. You killed for them too. Snarling again, Ursa bared her teeth. I did not kill anyone. It seemed that was a very sensitive spot for the redhead. Trying to approach the topic from another route, Naruto started speaking softly. Why do you hate those who killed them? Snorting, Ursa crossed her arms. They are animals. Anyone who takes another's life is scum. Nodding, Naruto probed in. Sort of like guards. Growling at the memory, Ursa nodded. Exactly like the guards. Those wretched beings don't even deserve the title of human. Nodding again, Naruto pressed on. So, because I kill, I like guards. Pausing, Ursa contemplated the new angle on things. She had never really considered that before, merely grouping killers together unconsciously. Well, no, but it's still not right. Naruto tipped his head to the side. But I did it for my friends. I'd rather die, or the bad guy die, rather than my friends. Would you die for Natsu, Gray or anyone else? Scoffing, Ursa turned an insulted eye to the blonde. What do you think I am? Of course. I would die for any of them in an instant. So if it a choice between them or bad guy, who you kill? Pausing, Ursa frowned. Neither. Leaning in, Naruto pressed gently. But if Natsu was about to die, what then? Shaking her head, Ursa refused to give up. I wouldn't have you try, and talk me into killing someone. It is wrong. Smiling gently, Naruto shook his head. No, that's not what I am saying. I am saying, you're not a monster for protecting your friends from evil. I'm not a monster, and I in business where death is almost completely guaranteed. Killing is never fun, you should be scared if it is. But, if it for your friends with no other way, it not bad. Falling silent, Naruto watched as Ursa process the information. She opened her mouth a few times to say something, but found the words lacking. Seeing her need time, Naruto stood and stretched. I'll let you think for a bit. But just know, killing to protect your family does not make you scum. Turning and walking out, Naruto left Ursa to consider what was said. Stepping out into the open area, Naruto looked down and saw Makarov looking up at him, a small smile on his face. You and Ursa seemed to have cleared things up. Naruto shrugged noncommittally. We spoke. Nodding, Makarov started speaking. Well, good. I'll tell you a little secret, if you can keep one. Looking down, Naruto nodded once. If there was anyone who could, it was definitely himself. Ursa had a hard life. When she came to the guild, she was quiet and reclusive. No one knew a thing about her until Gray, I think it was, spoke with her and got her to open up. She grew a great deal more after that, but I could tell that things had happened that she still hadn't spoken to anyone of. I tried to coerce her to telling me, but I lacked a certain finesse on the topic someone in her position would have had. She continued to bottle up the deepest emotions, and I worried about how they would affect her. Closing an eye, Makarov looked up at a frowning Naruto. I knew you had to have at least indirectly killed someone before. Reflexes like what you displayed when you first woke up weren't something someone can gain without having had their life in danger multiple times. I also saw that strange knife you pulled from your pocket when Ursa first made to attack you after you hurt Lucy. Blushing, Naruto scratched a cheek. I don't blame you for that. What I did see, though, was how you held the knife. It wasn't out for show. It was hidden behind your leg, ready to be brought through for a surprise, debilitating attack, was it not? Frowning, Naruto's respect grew for the small, unassuming man. To have noticed all this without having been exposed to it before took someone of great skill. I myself haven't had to kill anyone, which is one of the reasons Ursa came to Fairy Tail. It is a rule that the members themselves created over time, mostly with people in Ursa's position coming in to escape death. I can understand your perspective, however, and only someone like yourself could have spoken to Ursa like that. So for your help there, I thank you. Naruto smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. I just had good teacher. I simply told Urza what he told me. Smiling, Makarov motioned for Naruto to follow him back over to the group. Well then, your teacher must have been very wise to have you grow up so well. You were lucky. Smiling a little wider, Naruto nodded. Sure was. Reaching the group, they noticed Levi and Lucy staring at something in shock, while Gray just shook his head, and Natsu laughed out loud. Natsu laughing like that never meant anything good, so Makarov stepped forward. Natsu, what have you done now? Pointing, the boy kept laughing. Me? You mean us? We destroyed the Guildmaster's meeting hall. What? Looking past him, Makarov saw a gaping hole in the ground that was surrounded by rubble, right where the building used to stand. No, not again. Fading into shock, Makarov seemed to pass out on his feet, unable to believe that his kids had destroyed yet another building. Angry shouts sounded out as the villagers began returning, and upon seeing the lack of the hull, turned their anger towards the fairy tale members. Someone captures them. They need to pay for this. Don't let them escape. Seeing the group advance, Naruto backed up cautiously, while Urza dashed past him, and picked up Makarov. Everyone. Tactical retreat. Yes, sir. Sprinting round the angry group, the fairy tale mages avoided the grasping hands, and charged off towards the train tracks. Turning, Natsu called out over his shoulder as he ran, "You guys can take care of Kageyama. Catch you later." Retracing their steps, the mages took to casually walking the train tracks, their SC vehicle trashed. Makarov had awakened from his stupor, and though he grumbled a bit after, he was still proud of his ragtag group. Naruto took to walking towards the back of the group, looking up into the morning sky as the first rays peeked over the horizon. Sighing, Naruto let his thoughts wander as he walked, letting the chatter around him become background noise. Now that that horrible mess with Lullaby really was over, Naruto had to think about getting home somehow. He guessed the key to his return was to be found in where he arrived. Sure, it'd be easy if Kakashi was here, he could just send him back, but the man hadn't appeared for some reason. Closing an eye in thought, Naruto wondered about that invisible spot where Kakashi's chakra was collected. If he could somehow open it, it was almost a given that he'd be able to get home by following the trail. Perhaps reverse engineering it with seals might work. It was worth a shot, even if it'd take a while. Naruto was pulled from his thoughts as Levi and Lucy dropped back beside him, neither talking but looking like they wanted to. Smiling in his all-inclusive way, Naruto raised his hands behind his head. "Hey, so how are you?" They both looked up shyly, and nodded before turning their gazes back to their feet. Raising an eyebrow, Naruto looked down at Levi. "What wrong?" Eyes widening, Levi raised her hands, and waved them around in front of her chest. "Nothing. No, nothing, the reason we came back here is to say thanks." Chuckling, Naruto smiled. "That okay? I just did for you what I'd do for any of my friends." Lucy looked up this time. "Well, we still thought we should say it anyway. You really did save our lives there." Nodding once, Naruto shrugged. "Well, my pleasure. I happy you okay." Naruto then found himself with a set of arms wrapped around his neck as the slender blue-headed girl turned and wrapped him up in a warm hug, placing a kiss on his left cheek. "We're only okay because of you." Letting go, Levi backed off from the slightly shocked Naruto as Lucy stepped in and wrapped her own arms around the boy. "Thank you." Leaning forward, she then placed a soft kiss on Naruto's other cheek and turned, blushing violently as she let go. Naruto didn't move, his brain trying to work out what had just happened. His face started glowing when he finally registered the soft presses against his cheeks. The grin slid onto his face, and his eyes grew a bit lidded as he nodded happily. "If this what I get when I save you, I hope I save you many more times." Both girls giggled and gave him one last thankful look before jogging back up to the front of the group. A soft weight alighted on Naruto's shoulder as they left and he turned, seeing Happy staring at him with wide eyes. The cat grinned and patted Naruto's head. "They like you." Snorting, Naruto shook his head. "It a one-off thing, cat. I wouldn't complain if they did it again though." Letting out a laugh, Happy rolled over onto his back. "Ha, I was wrong, you like them." Flicking the animal's nose, Naruto grinned lopsidedly. Who wouldn't like some of that? Falling from the sturdy shoulder, Happy rubbed his nose. "Maybe I should get Natsu to come hug you then." Feeling a little grossed out, Naruto shook his head. "No, I okay. No need for man hugs." Happy tilted his head in confusion. "I don't get it. I get hugs off Natsu all the time." Laughing, Naruto reached out and scruffed the cat's fur. "You cat though. That okay?" "Ah." Not quite understanding, Happy fell silent for a moment before a strong voice called out to him. "Happy, could you leave us for a moment? I'd like to speak with Naruto alone briefly." Seeing Urza, the cat nodded and floated up front, but not before turning and saying, "She likes you." Dodging a half-heartedly thrown rock, the cat laughed merrily and swooped away to land on Natsu's head. Smiling at the retreating cat, Urza smoothed her face as she began walking beside Naruto. It seemed like these last few moments had been good for confessions. They didn't look at each other, Urza trying to find the words while Naruto just waited patiently. It took a moment though, but Urza eventually broke the silence. Thank you. Naruto nodded in her direction. You welcome. They fell silent for another few moments before Urza looked at the blonde. Where did you come up with that view on death? Did you work it out? Shaking his head, Naruto smiled. No, that was my teacher. He was a pervy old thing, but a very good ninja. I went on a long trip with him, and during that time, he explains killing to me. I only kill a few people, but he killed hundreds, maybe even thousands in Great Ninja War. Anyone who kills needs to know that they are not monster for doing what they have to. Urza's eyes widened at this. War? I don't think we have ever even had a real war here. Plenty of battles, but nothing major like that. Naruto smiled grimly. You never seen war in this country, ever? Then I hope you never do. I haven't seen it, but I see enough to know it not nice. I hope you never have to kill either. But you already have, haven't you? It was a statement more than a question. Urza dropped her head as her fringe covered her eyes. She sighed and a barely audible answer reached his ears as she finally confessed. Yes. Not saying anything, Naruto realized it was taking a lot for Urza to say even that, so waited. When we broke out of that accursed tower, that was the first time I used my magic abilities. I had an old friend in there who was a lot like a father to me. He was killed at the beginning of the riot. I telekinetically lifted a sword and thrust it through the chest of the guard before I even knew what happened. A little later after that, I saw one of my young friends have his entire jaw blown off by a mage there. I don't know what happened, but the mage was dead soon after. Then after that, it just gets blurry. All I can remember is blood, pain, suffering and death. Urza took a moment and collected herself. When I escaped, I couldn't understand why I turned into someone similar to the guards and killed other people. I reached the mainland, but no one could understand what I went through, and no one could help me through it. I guess this is when I bottled everything up. Finally turning and looking at Naruto, she had a soft smile on her face. Thank you for clearing that up for me. I still stand by my no-killing rule, but at least I can somewhat see your perspective on things now. Reaching out, Naruto slung a single arm around Urza and pulled her in for a light hug. It's okay. I'm just happy I could help. Leaning in briefly, Urza nodded and pulled away. I wish no one would ever kill, but I suppose it's unavoidable sometimes. Naruto nodded, smiling gently. Yep. You just keep your rule, though, because that is who you are now. Smiling, Urza nodded. Indeed. Boy, where's that windy bastard? Looking around, Natsu squinted as he tried to spot Erger. He was right here. I swear. Looking around, Urza frowned. Did you tie him up, Natsu? Looking back, the boy cocked an eyebrow. With what? Growling, Urza reached out and slapped the back of his head. That's why he's not here. He must have woken up and escaped. Stupid boy. Pouting, Natsu rubbed his spot. But I didn't have anything to tie him up with. Scowling, Urza began ranting at him again. Naruto, however, looked around suspiciously. So that must have been what was following them since Clover. Walking over to Makarov, Naruto stretched and looked down at him. I just gonna go for a walk, clear my thoughts. Whatever. I'm not your master. Do what you want. Grinning, Naruto nodded. Turning, he jumped from the tracks, landing on a tall rock spur 50 feet away. Touching down on it, he flashed to the next one and quickly disappeared. Lucy and Levi noticed his departure and looked at Makarov. Where is he going? The small man shrugged. He went to clear his head or something. I don't really care, he's not a part of the guild. Looking out over the spurs, the girls frowned, but didn't push it any further. Landing on a large flat plateau, Naruto turned and looked back behind him. You can come out now. I know you're there. Hearing a gravely chuckle, Naruto watched as Erger seemingly flickered into the air above him. The man was covered in a great many burn marks, and where there wasn't burns, there were small cuts and grazes, all crusted over after his fight with Natsu. Well now, that's a bit of a surprise. I didn't realize you could sense people. Naruto shrugged, not once letting his eyes off him. I have a few tricks. What do you want and why are you following us? Erger snorted and spat a filthy wad of something off to the side. Bah, what would I want with some weak-willed guild like them? Pathetic bunch. What I was following was you. After that first hit you landed on me, I thought it only fair if I repay you first before going back for that flame kid. Naruto just glared back up at him. Say I let you vent your anger on me. Would you let Natsu go? Throwing his head back, Erger let out a loud laugh. Let him go? Are you completely stupid? Hell no. After I kill you, I'll make sure to kill him next. Clenching his fists, Naruto frowned. So you won't let Natsu go for nothing? Glaring down at the blonde, Erger shook his head. No, never. Once I have someone in my sights, I will kill them, one way or another. And I'm first. Pulling his giant scythe out in front of him, a maniacal shine lit up his eyes. Yup. And damn am I gonna enjoy this. Preparing to attack, he was startled by Naruto holding out a hand. Do you seriously think you can beat me as you are? I'm far stronger than Natsu. Growling, the former guildmaster glared at him. Of course. And what the hell are you on about? Stronger than flame retard. I watched you fight Lullaby. You did nothing but trip it over. Lowering his arm, Naruto shook his head. That was their fight. Urza wanted to lead with Gray and Natsu, so I let them. You fight me now though. Naruto trailed off as a blue tinge began to surround his body. I will not hold back. Big words for the backup team. You're as useless as those two girls. Glaring at the depraved man, Naruto clenched his teeth. There were big help in beating Lullaby. You just can't see practical use of something like that. Gripping his scythe, Ergur grinned. That's because there is no need for weaklings like that. Now die. Swinging his massive scythe, Ergur cackled loudly as a nearly invisible line of air shot down towards Naruto, chopping the blonde as well as the rock he was standing on clean in half. The laughter stopped, though when a puff went off, and a diced rock lay in Naruto's place. I give you one more chance. Stop, or I stop you. Spinning around, Ergur growled. You don't get it, do you? I won't ever stop. Not ever. Clenching, Ergur was bathed in the purple light of his magic as he curled up. Storm Mail. Naruto watched on as a gust of wind rapidly picked up around him, all of it spiraling towards Ergur as he disappeared inside a whirling mass of air. He laughed from inside his cocoon as he saw Naruto looking up. You scared brat. This is the ultimate wind defense. Nothing can break through. Storm Shred. Holding out his hands, a purple circle appeared before him, before thousands of tiny wind blades shot out towards Naruto at high speed. Watching them come in almost in slow motion, Naruto merely stepped around them like they were floating to the ground. Ergur's continuous laughter filled his ears as he easily avoided the blades, the fact Naruto hadn't been cut to shreds not occurring to the man. Moving through the attack, Naruto decided enough was enough and jumped. Flickering into existence beside Ergur, the mage didn't even notice the rapid movement, as a thunderous punch exploded into his face, rocketing him down to crunch deep into one of the rocky spurs, the hard granite giving way under the force of his body. Coughing loudly, blood gushed from his mouth as several broken ribs punctured his lungs, the entire right-hand side of his face ballooning out instantly from the multiple fractures. The storm ale dissipated as he lost control, the howling winds fizzling out to nothing in a second. Painfully looking up through his one unswollen eye, Ergur looked up at Naruto as he landed on a spur before him, a mixture of confusion and fear on his face. Spitting out a tooth, the mage glared at the blonde. What the hell was that? How did you break through my defense? And where did this strength come from? Naruto looked at his arm as he casually raised it. The dark mage's eyes whitened as a small tornado sprung to life around it, Naruto carelessly inspecting it like he would his fingernails. I copied your barrier back in Oshibana. I just modify it. Thanks for the idea. I guess a stronger wind can break weaker wind. As for my strength, I already told you I'm stronger than Natsu. Ninja don't reveal personal secrets if not needed. Sometimes, not even then. Ergur's growled as he saw the replica. How did you do that? Your magic is self-replication. Cutting off the flow, Naruto looked at him. Who told you that? Groaning in pain, Ergur fought off the urge to pass out, and pulled himself from the rock. Climbing up, he panted as blood filled his lungs. Reaching the top, he held himself up by his side and glared at the blonde. Spitting out more blood, he coughed. I saw you with my own eyes. No one needed to tell me anything. Naruto nodded. That was one ability, yes. But I'm not mage, I'm ninja. I can do far more than just that. Impossible. Naruto shrugged. Believe what you want. Growing frustrated with the pointless chit-chat, Ergur tried to reactivate Storm Mail, but ended up wincing at the strain it put on his body. Hearing Naruto sigh, the mage scowled. So, do you want to keep going? You know I beat you. Fury rising in his chest at being spoken down to by this whelp of a child, Ergur lost it. Completely ignoring his pain, he forced his Storm Mail to life around him in a blaze of rage. Shut the hell up, you pathetic dog of fairy tale. I will never stop, and I will kill you, even if it kills me. Throwing his hands out before him, he extended his index and middle fingers, before crossing them before him in the shape of an X. Green speed. Instantly, a giant barreling windstorm roared its way towards Naruto, shredding up rocks for hundreds of meters around, due to the strength of the gale. Sighing, Naruto shook his head. I gave you your chances. Time for you to sleep with them. Vanishing from sight, Naruto appeared behind Ergur with a kunai drawn. May your soul rest in peace. Ha! Before the man could even twitch, the kunai severed his spinal cord. Blood spurted from the wound, and Ergur slumped to the ground, dead before he hit. His powerful winds died away rapidly, the white canyon moaning as the winds coursed through them, as if they knew life had just been taken. Looking down at the man, Naruto set his lips in a firm line. Leaning down, he closed the man's eyelids and sighed. Despite having had that conversation with Urza barely half an hour ago, Naruto still closed his own eyes, and willed the guilty feeling away. Standing, Naruto took a deep breath, held, and then slowly exhaled as he thought of his old Senin teacher. How did you deal with so many deaths under your belt? If for nothing else but to stop this horrible feeling, I will make your dream a reality. Turning, Naruto began digging into the hard rock behind him barehanded. The ground cut into his hands, but he ignored it. Taking his time, Naruto dug a hole big enough for Ergur. Placing the body inside, he covered the mound and patted it down. Taking a lone scythe, he stuck it into the head of the grave handle down, the weapon a fitting tombstone for the man. Turning, Naruto cast one last look at the former mage, before closing his eyes and jumping away. Catching up to the group, Naruto landed lightly, and ran into the midst of them. The little old man with them looked up at his arrival and grinned. "Oh, Naruto. Did you do what you wanted to?" Glancing back at the mage, Naruto nodded. "I did what I had to." The unspoken message ran clear between the two, but everyone else was blissfully unaware. Jumping to his side, Natsu tackled him. "So where'd you go? Why didn't you say? Me and Happy could have come." Grabbing Natsu in a headlock, Naruto proceeded to give him a noogie. "You wanna come? You can't even handle this." Sticking a foot on Naruto's back, Natsu kicked himself free, fists blazing. "I can handle anything you can throw at me. Try handle my flames instead." Diving at Naruto, the blonde laughed and jumped away, landing in front of the group, running a short distance before spinning and engaging Natsu in a fierce fistfight. Lucy sighed as she watched them spar, well tired of the walk and just wanting home. Honestly, how can they have such energy? "We haven't eaten in a whole day, slept in 2, and bathed in like 3. Slumping dramatically to the ground, she began crying fake tears. "When someone carry me." Laughing, Levi pulled her to her feet and helped her along. "Just think, the longer it is before you rest, the more you'll appreciate it when you actually get it. Besides, we're nearly at Oshibana. We can catch the train home from there." Crying out happily, Lucy raised a fist and began imagining all the delicious things awaiting them at the guild and the easy trip home. "Oh, I forgot stupid Eisenwald destroyed the train station. Damn them all. Is it too much to just ask for one thing, to go right for me?" Slumping to the ground in front of the fenced-off building, Levi patted Lucy's shoulder as the girl cried in frustration. Hearing a roar behind them though, the girls turned to see Erza skid up in another SC vehicle, this one probably twice as long as the last. "Erza, I love you." As the blonde girl flung herself forward to capture the uncomfortable red hat in a tight hug, Gray walked around the SC, inspecting the quality and losing clothing pieces along the way. Finishing the rounds, he stood back in nothing but his boxers and whistled. "Wow, Erza, this is a really recent model. Where did you grab this from?" Managing to disentangle herself from the firmly attached girl, Erza pointed down the road at a small shop. "I hired it from there. I even managed to seal a discount with the manager too." "Ah, that explains it then." Shrugging, Gray avoided all thoughts of Erza's usually violent persuasion techniques and climbed into the cabin, now completely naked. Lucy and Levi quickly joined him. The following shriek deafened everyone within hearing range as Gray was booted out to collect his clothing. Once decent, he climbed back inside to find Lucy lying down with her head in Levi's lap, easily making herself comfortable. Catching a flash of white and pink hard underwear as she lifted her legs onto the seat, Gray looked away with a blush. "Lucy, perhaps you shouldn't put your legs up on the seat like that." Growling, Lucy stuffed her hands down to her skirt and managed to partially obscure the view. "Normally I'd thump you for that, but I'm just too tired." "I don't care, have your look, let me sleep." Checking again, Gray's blush deepened as he saw no real improvement in the problem. "And the girl gets all high and mighty when she can see my boxers." Looking back out the window, he startled as Naruto's face leaned in. Seeing where he was looking, Gray pushed him out. "Have you no shame?" Pushing his head back in, Naruto peeked through Gray's fingers splayed across his face. "What are you talking about? She said it's fine this once, so how could I say no?" Scowling at the blatant forwardness, Gray looked over at Lucy as she ignored Naruto getting a clean eyeful. "Come on you lazy girl, cover up." Rolling over, Lucy mumbled something like, "Shut up, sleeping." "Oh." Seeing the view cut off, Naruto let his head be pushed from the wagon and leant back. He looked down and saw Makarov standing beside him. Grinning, Naruto's eyes sparkled. "Nice view." Nodding, Makarov gave him a thumbs up. "Good show my boy. I only wish I could have seen." "Now, care to help an old man through the door?" Laughing, Naruto opened it wide and bowed as the master literally climbed inside. Looking over, Naruto finally saw Natsu standing back, staring at the horrible contraption as he slowly turned green. Looking up at Erza, the girl sighed. "Just throw him in. It makes things 100 times easier." Shrugging, Naruto walked over, picked the boy up and threw him head first onto the floor. Closing the door, he smiled up at Erza. "All done." Raising an eyebrow, Erza glanced back. "You're not getting in?" "Nope." Jumping, Naruto landed on the roof. "Getting on." Rolling her eyes, the S-rank mage slowly started pumping some juice into the engine and pulled out towards home. The trip home was fairly uneventful, except for that one time Naruto fell asleep on the roof and fell off. Erza's driving was also a great deal calmer than it had been on the way out to Clover 2. Despite still being low on power, she refused to let anyone else drive, but was a great deal more careful about it. It took a few hours, but eventually, they reached Magnolia and pulled up outside the gates of Fairy Tail. Looking out the windows, everyone gushed happily at seeing the familiar sight, all very ready for food and sleep. As they were all climbing out, Mir and a couple of the other guild members came out to meet them. Master, it's so good to see you all back here safe and sound. I trust it wasn't too much trouble. Dumping down from the driver's seat, Urza landed lightly before the cheerful woman and smiled. No, it wasn't too much of a hassle. Lullaby was defeated, and the guild masters are all safe. There was a little collateral damage, but nothing extensive. Sighing, Mira shook her head. Like always, I suppose. And what with you, Natsu and Grade together, I'm actually relieved there wasn't more damage. Lifting a very sick Natsu out of the car, Lucy looked over. You heard what was destroyed. Nodding, Mira put a hand on her cheek. Oh, this and that. Something about a train station destroyed, an SC vehicle wrecked, the guild master's hull damaged, just the usual. Sliding his shirt off, Gray shook his head. Not damaged, completely gone. Nothing was left. Blinking a few times, Mira processed the information, and just smiled again. Oh well, I guess it couldn't have been avoided. Sliding the boy's feet to the ground, Lucy looked over at Mira suspiciously. You seem to be taking this very well. The barmaid didn't reply and just walked forward, making to help out with Natsu, but stopped dead when a wave of BO hit her. Pinching her nose, the white-haired girl recoiled. Pong. How long has it been since any of you have had a shower? A pair of filthy arms reached around her waist from behind, lifting her off the ground with a squeal. Oh, about a day or two, supplemented by a lot of running and sweating. Miss us, Mira-chan. Naruto. Not again. Squirming around as the blonde laughed, his captive only succeeded in rubbing more dirt and gunk into her clean clothes. Finally putting her down, Naruto jumped back and avoided the swipe. I take that as yes. Clicking her tongue, Mira held her arms out as she looked at herself in resignation. Honestly, Naruto, I hope this doesn't become a normal thing. This is really, wait, you can understand me. How? Chuckling, Naruto scratched the back of his head. It's still not perfect yet. I just make lots of clone and learn from them. I left a few in each city to learn. Mouth opening slightly in surprise, Mira found herself nodding. So that must have been how Naruto-chan picked up everything so quickly. I thought she was just really talkative. Too. Seeing a blonde wonder out with a sultry twist in her hips, Naruto slapped his face. Oh, her. I forget. Bowing forward, the clone gave Naruto a fine view down her top and winked at him, blowing him a kiss. Makarov jumped up beside Naruto, love hearts floating from his eyes as he inspected the sight. What a beauty. Maybe she could be a cover girl for our guild. Mira looked down at her fondly, and laid a hand on her shoulder. Naruto-chan here proved to be exceptionally popular with the boys. Business has doubled these last 2 days. Nodding, Naruto let out a sigh. I know, I create her like that. Anyway, I gotta dispel her now. Someone catch me please. Walking over curiously, Levi rested a hand on his shoulder. Why, what's wrong? Grimacing, Naruto pointed at the clone. She not dispel for so long, I get memory backlash. It hurt like bitch, and I get knocked out for a bit. Sighing, he crossed his fingers. See you on other side. Before anyone could say anything, Naruto popped his clone. Reeling backwards like he had just collected a sledgehammer to the forehead, Naruto's eyes rolled back into his head as he passed out, crushing an ill-prepared Levi under him with a cry. Groaning, Naruto rolled over and held his head. Oh damn, someone please get me a drink. Right away. Groaning again, Naruto struggled to open his eyes as a cup was placed to his lips. Here, drink. Thanks. Lifting his head up, Naruto sipped the cool water and sighed as it ran down his throat. That had been a long time coming. Pulling himself up into a sitting position, Naruto rubbed his neck as the headache began to ease. As the pain cleared, a number of fresh memories sprung forward. The clearest of the recollections seemed to be the incredible infatuation most of the males, and a few of the females seemed to have with his chest and hips. Naruto actually had trouble remembering most everyone's eyes. He also blushed when he remembered that a buxom brunette glommed him from behind, grabbing a handful of his chest, and commenting on them in awe. Shaking his head, Naruto stored that memory away for a later date. It was definitely a keeper. Opening his eye, Naruto saw Mira backing away. You okay now? Nodding, Naruto leant on his knees and took the cup from the girl. Finishing off what was left, he let out a gasp and smacked his lips. Looking around, Naruto noticed this room was a little different to what he had seen before. It was small, tidy and relatively sparse with pale white walls, the only real thing of interest being a desk in the middle of the room. Noticing his look, Mira explained. This is Master's office. We only let trusted people rest in here. Urza convinced us you would be okay and brought you in here herself. Blinking, Naruto raised his eyebrows. Urza did. Mira Jane nodded happily. I don't quite know what it was you did, but she seems to have taken a bit of a liking to you. You also seem to have made a bit of an impression on Lucy and Levi too. Giggling, Mira sent him a wink as his eyes widened. I better be careful or else you might charm me too. The blush rose to Naruto's cheeks as he processed the information. I didn't mean to, but really. Not answering, Mira placed her hands behind her back and gently swayed back and forth as she looked up in thought. Really what? Impress the girls. Or charm me. Stuttering, Naruto found himself at a rare loss for words. Crinkling her nose, Mira laughed at his shock and reached out, flicking his forehead. I'm just teasing. Come on, you seem fine now, let's go get you some food. Walking in through the door to the mess hall, Naruto found the guild members all shouting loudly and conversing amongst each other in their own unique way. Turning, he headed for a table closet to the bar before a deep voice called out. Naruto, it is good to have you back. Hello? Turning, Naruto found himself squashed against a wide chest as a pair of powerful arms crushed him into it. How was your little adventure? As manly as could be hoped. Slipping free, Naruto looked a long way up, and finally saw Elfman's face grinning down at him. Pulling away, Naruto nodded awkwardly and chuckled. Yeah, I suppose it went alright. Fought some dudes, saved some more people, the usual I guess. Cheering loudly, the massive man reached out, and slung a single arm around Naruto's shoulders, slamming him back into his chest with a hard thud. Now that's a real man. So honest, yet so powerful. Come, you must meet some more of the guild. Not given a choice, the blonde was dragged over to a long bench and thrown down into a seat. Flinching at the solid landing, Naruto opened an eye and looked up. Hey there, youngster. Last time I saw you, you were dead asleep in Lucy's arms. Say what? When did that happen? Laughing, the man before him raised a mug. Ah, my apologies. I was with Natsu and Lucy when they found you after your fall from the air. Lucy was the one who carried you back to the guild. My name is Mikao. Trying to accept that Lucy had managed to carry him that whole way alone, Naruto nodded. Good to meet you, Naruto. Extending a hand, the man took it and shook it solidly. Now having a proper chance, Naruto took a look at the man. He seemed normal enough, with his deep blue hair and a short cut, a matching mustache nestled under his thin rectangular nose. Stern, piercing, brown eyes looked at him, a grin below them, though lightening their gaze. A dark blue shirt hugged his chest while a white, long-sleeve coat covered that. Naruto couldn't see much else seeming he was sitting down, but wasn't too worried about that. Letting go of his hand, Naruto found a drink pushed in front of him. Here, have a drink. We can't have a friend thirsty. Turning to look at the new man, Naruto nodded. Thanks for that. Wakaba. Nice to meet you. Nodding, Naruto couldn't help but stare at the man's strange, dirty blonde hairstyle. It was up in a weird pompadour, the front stiffly extending out over his face in a long cylinder. Beneath that, a pair of slits for eyes stared at him uncannily, a grin matching the cow's on his face. His upper lip however was clean-shaven, not following his friend's trend. A pipe poked from his lips, the end glowing softly with every breath he took. Below that was a simple long-sleeved beige coat with a dirty orange shirt revealed beneath. Staring a little longer at his shirt, Naruto wondered how that would look on himself, as he absently took a sip of his drink. He instantly sprayed it across the table, as the powerful alcohol burned the back of his throat. The group instantly laughed, Elfman clapping Naruto's back solidly several times to help the boy clear his throat. Can't handle your liquor, eh? Ha, what a lightweight. Spluttering, Naruto looked around for the source of the voice. Who said that? I did, big guy. Turning, Naruto's eyes widened as he saw the brunette of his memories. Long, full brown hair fell down her back in abundant amounts, curling in on itself, giving the appearance of even more hair. Mischievous dark eyes shone as she eyed him up, a hint of a smirk on her lips. She grinned a little more as she noticed Naruto's eyes drop to her chest. The bold girl had nothing but a dark blue bikini top on, the stretched fabric barely holding back the sizable amounts of flesh hidden behind them. The bag strap was slung over her shoulder, the top of the bag just visibly poking over her hips. A pair of bracelets were clasped around her toned biceps, matched somewhat with the light gray bangles that dangled from her wrists. A strange emblem was imprinted onto her skin in a dark blue, matching the odd carving that sat above the guild name at the front of the door. Below that though was a set of simple, light brown three-quarter pants that hugged her hips. Despite all this though, what drew Naruto's full attention was the massive barrel she had her hand on. Pointing at the thing, Naruto swallowed. You're drinking that whole thing by yourself. Laughing, she tapped the side of the barrel. Actually. What you're looking at is my life support. Can't live without it. Staring at the thing, Naruto didn't really know what to think. I bet your liver could live quite happily without that. Barking out a single snap of laughter, she picked the thing up, swallowed several huge mouthfuls from a hole in the top, and slammed it back down. Ain't never troubled me before, and if it does, that's for my future self to worry about. The name's Kana. Nodding, Naruto clicked a finger a few times. Yeah, I remember you. You were the one who jumped me from behind, and grabbed my boobs. Everyone around the table sprayed their mouthfuls at each other this time, not quite sure they heard correctly. Coughing a bit, Kana wiped her mouth and looked at the blonde incredulously. Say what? You jumped that blonde barmaid Naruko, and grabbed her tits. That was me. Or at least, a clone of me. Mikao, Wakaba and Elfman sort of tuned out at that, happily recalling the fine moment. Kana however wanted to find out just what the new boy meant. So, you saying you somehow cloned yourself, then transformed yourself, and then worked here with Mira Jane. So how'd you get the memories? Naruto nodded. Yup, that was about it. When I dispel my clones, I gain their memories. Sensations too. He shivered as he rubbed his chest. You've done something like that before, haven't you? You sure knew what you were doing when you grabbed me. Blushing somewhat, Kana didn't reply and went back to drinking, while the men at the table flushed and began leaking a bit of blood as something ruptured in their nasal cavities. More or less oblivious to the awkward situation he had caused for Kana, Naruto placed his hands to the table and stood up. Well, it was great meeting you all, but I am totally famished. I'll talk with you in a bit. Leaving, the table fell, quiet as the noise raged on around them. 3 sets of eyes zeroed in on Kana as the girl tried to ignore them. Damn her impulsiveness. Stuffing his face, Naruto sucked a chicken leg clean of the meat, before cramming a whole loaf of bread into his mouth with his other hand. His rapid eating pace had earned the attention of a few of the guild members, betting beginning to start on how many bowls he would go through. So far, he had licked clean 9. Reaching out for the next plate, Naruto paused to burp loudly, before looking up at Mira-Jane. So, just a quick question, what's with some of the members, having the guild emblem stamped onto them? I know Natsu, Gray, Lucy, Urza, and Kana have it, but I haven't seen it on too many other people. Watching Naruto tuck into the next plate with just as much gusto as his first one, Mira headed over to make another one. Oh, we all have them, you just can't see some on them. It's a quick method of identifying which guild you are affiliated with. All guilds have one. I have mine stamped high on my thigh. I'd show you, but I have too much dress to hike up. Struggling not to choke on his mouthful, Naruto thumped his chest and forced down a lump much bigger than first intended. You mean you can get this thing anywhere on your body? Like, anywhere, anywhere. Nodding, Mira took the brief opportunity to clean up Naruto's old plates. Yup, I've even heard of a couple of mages getting their stamp on their backsides. Imagining Mira getting her stamp on her bum, a pervy look oozed onto his face as a small sliver of drool slipped from his lip. Giggling, Mira flicked him with a towel. Oi, stop thinking what I know you're thinking, or I'll stop the food. Instantly coming back, Naruto dived into his plate and began destroying the food with renewed vigor. After finishing his meal, Naruto had decided to go for a light jog to help digest his meal. He was surprised to find he'd been out of it most of the day, as it was now coming into the twilight hour. Jumping to the roofs, Naruto took one look around and forgot about his run. The city had just started to light up, the gentle glow of streetlights, and townhouses casting soft light into the growing shadows as the sky above shifted colors from a deep blue to purple and then to red. Before he knew it, Naruto found himself lying on the top of the guild staring out at Magnolia. Resting his head back on his hands, a small smile crept to his lips as the young couples began emerging, walking arm in arm around the pretty rivers. Hearing movement behind him, Naruto looked up to see a shock of light climb over the roof apex. Ah, there you are. Sliding down beside Naruto, Mira-Jane adopted a position much like Naruto's, hands behind her head with one leg up, and resting on the other's bent knee. Looking back out over the city, Naruto watched as the light in the sky began to be replaced by the light of the land. So how did you find me? Smiling, Mira looked up to the stars in the sky. Oh, it took a little bit, but then I thought you might be up here, because I used to come up here when I was younger. Pursing his lips, Naruto looked across. How did you even get up here anyway? It's a big climb for the average person. Smirking, Mira tapped her nose. I wasn't always like this, you know. I'm still classified as an S-rank mage. Turning his head, so he could fully look at her, Naruto raised an eyebrow. You? But you're so, I dunno, soft and girly. I couldn't imagine you like Ursa. Laughing, Mira looked up in remembrance. You'd be surprised. I was the one that used to start fights with her. Snorting, Naruto looked up at the sky. Well, I am surprised. Big, tough Mira-Jane, S-rank mage of fairy tale. Gently hitting his arm, Mira rolled her eyes. Stop making it sound like I'm a brute. I don't take quests anymore. I just work here as the barmaid and the fairy tale cover girl. That spiked Naruto's interest. Cover girl, you say? Mira poked her tongue out and winked. I knew that'd get your attention. Yes, I have posed several times for the Sorcerer magazine. Beaming, Naruto pushed himself up onto an elbow. Know where I can find one of these magazines? Grinning coyly, Mira raised an eyebrow. What, you'd rather look at a photo when the real thing is right here? Pausing, Naruto thought that one over. She never did say she was dressed differently for the photos, so sighing, Naruto poked his tongue out at her. Guess you got a point. But at least I can look at a picture for as long as I want without anyone calling me a pervert. Lifting her arms, Mira stretched. I never said I'd call you anything like that. Finding himself a little out of his depth, Naruto bit his lip as he tried to come back with something witty. His brain had seemed to abandon ship though, and he was left just staring at the girl as she stretched. She seemed to be holding the pose for a little while too, but Naruto just threw that down to his imagination. Her gentle voice broke through his trance eventually, and he managed to pull his eyes away. So, how come you're speaking so clearly now? Surely one clone popping wouldn't make such a noticeable difference. Having something else to focus on now, Naruto leant back and thought. Well, no one ever really told me this, but I think I've worked it out over time. Pretend I make 5 clones. One pops. Myself, plus the other 4 get that information. Then another pops. The rest of us get 2 clones worth of information. A third pops. That's 3 clones worth of information back to me. You might say, oh, but that's just the same information all along, but I think, because each clone has an independence of its own, it digests the information different, meaning I get a whole other view on what was absorbed. So with Naruto, it wasn't only her memories I got, it was hers, plus however many hundred before her. Bright eyes whitening as she processed the information, Mira sucked in a slow breath. So, this isn't really an additional style of learning, more like a multiplication. Having a think, Naruto shrugged. Yeah, I guess. Never really thought about it that deep before. Frowning, Mira Jane started ticking away her fingers as she ran some math through her head. Hang on, if that's the case, that's more like squaring the number. Naruto, you might have absorbed over 10,000 clone memories. No wonder you were knocked out. A vacant look entered Naruto's eyes as he tried to understand what Mira just revealed to him. He didn't struggle with it too long, however. Math never really interested him. Shrugging again, he clasped his hand behind his head. That's kinda cool, I suppose. Casting an amused glance over at the blonde, Mira just shook her head. The only other person Mira could think of that could blow something like that off was Natsu. Turning her gaze back to the sky, the two fell into silence, the soft murmur of crowds in the distance gently washing over them. Clouds rolled through the sky slowly as a mild breeze pushed them through the night air. Suddenly, a bright streak of light shot across the dark sky, lighting it up for a moment of brilliance, before fading into nothingness. Gasping, Mira pushed herself up, eyes shining in awe. Naruto. That was the biggest one I have seen in years. Quick, make a wish. Looking at the girl with a confused expression, Naruto didn't move. Why would I do that? Raising an eyebrow, Mira looked down. Don't you know? When you see a falling star, you make a wish, and it might come true. Eyes wide, Naruto pushed himself up. No way. I can't believe I missed out for so long. I wish someone would have told me that sooner. Giggling, Mira Jane covered her mouth. Didn't your parents or friends ever tell you about that? Chuckling sheepishly, Naruto scratched his bicep and looked away. Seeing him draw into himself, Mira wondered if she said something wrong. He answered though before she could voice her concern. Well, I'm an orphan, so I never really had anyone there to tell me that. I never really had any friends either until within the last few years, and by that stage, I guess that they just forgotten. Gasping softly, Mira's eyebrows crinkled in sorrow for the boy. Oh, Naruto. I'm sorry, I didn't know. Chuckling again, he met her eyes. That's alright. It might have been a little lonely, but I turned out okay, so there's nothing to worry about. His eyes then thinned to slits as he gave his friend a wide grin. Infected like most people, Mira couldn't help but smile back softly. Well, in that case, I'll make my wish now. Closing her eyes for a moment, Mira frowned in concentration before smiling and opened her eyes. Okay, your turn. Nodding, Naruto scrunched his eyes closed as he focused on his wish. I wish to be Hokage someday. I wish to be Hokage someday. I wish. His mind trailed off as a set of soft lips tenderly pressed themselves onto his cheek. They held a position for a moment before pulling away. Raising a hand to his cheek, Naruto looked over at Mira as she leaned back, a beautiful smile on her face. What was that for? She cast him a warm gaze, and her smile widened at his confusion. It was my wish. I wished you would never feel lonely again. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want a next part of this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification, and also check out the other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.